viewers, welcome to a special update edition on Medicaid Transformation. I realize that is not exactly riveting for most of you, so I'm going to try to make this as quick and simple as possible, but it is really, really important because there were some major changes that came about in session that we just finished in June. Major changes that came about that are impacting behavioral health as a result of the Medicaid transformation. So what is Medicaid transformation? In the original legislation, it primarily focused on moving physical health services from a fee-for-service to managed care, like what we've done in behavioral health. In the new legislation, there's a lot more of an impact on behavioral health. So in the new legislation, what they've done is they've created two different types of plans. One is physical health, which is called a standard plan. And the second one is behavioral health, and it's called a tailored plan. To help get all of this clear for you, because I know some people learn by reading, others by listening, some by both, we've put together an overview sheet to try to make this as simple as possible and to map out the tailored plans and the standard plans so that you'll understand what they are. So let's talk about the standard plans first. Who's going to run them? They're going to be run by PHPs, prepaid health plans. These are your big managed care companies. Very likely will be taking these on. An example would be WellCare, United, Blue Cross, Centene. I mean, these are just, there's a handful of folks that will be applying. We don't know who's going to get the contract, but those, it's likely going to be a name that you know. That will be taking on the statewide plans. So again, there's 4 of them, and they will be, if you're a consumer, let's say I'm a consumer that is in Asheville, I may be using one of the 4 statewide ones, but if I was another person in the eastern part of the state, I could be using that same one because they are statewide. Just want to keep emphasizing this is very unusual because we're used to our catchment areas on that physical health side, 4 statewide PHPs. In addition to them, there's also something called a PLE, which is a provider-led entity. On the PLE side, there can be up to 12 PLEs in regions. There are 6 regions that have been identified in the state, and then that paper I just mentioned that we have a link on here too, there's a map that shows you where those 6 regions are. In those regions, again, there can be up to 12 PLEs. So we have 4 statewide, 12 PLEs, 16. We're not going to have 16. It's highly unlikely we're going to have 12 PLEs. We will have some, but not likely 12. But if you are doing services that are outpatient or any that are listed for the PHPs or the PLEs, you need to know that you've got the 4 statewide you're going to need to get connected with and get contracts with, and then whoever is your PLE. So in the PLEs, in the PHP PLE standard plan, I know this is so many acronyms, right? There are certain things that they have to do. They have to provide all the physical health for Medicaid and NC Health Choice. But they also have to cover prescription drugs, long-term services, and supports. And they have behavioral health services, again, that are not provided by the LME MCOs. And I'll talk to you about what those look like in the tailored plan in just a minute. They also are required to do EPSDT on the behavioral health side. Not real clear how that is going to work. They do not serve inmates in prison. They are not doing CAP-C, CAP-DA. There's a whole list of things that are in there that they do not cover. And again, they don't cover the services that the LME MCOs do in tailored plans. So folks have asked, well, when is the standard plan going to get up and running? We don't know, but what I can tell you is this. The RFP for the standard plan is likely coming out the beginning of August. My guess is that the department very much will hope to have the identified PHPs and PLEs towards the end of the year or the beginning of next year. And again, I'm just guessing here because I know the department wants to move on this pretty quickly, that they will want to see these plans up and running by the end of 2019. But it may run a little later than that because there's always things that happen that seem to drag things out. Okay, so now let's move on to the tailored plans because I know those are very important for our folks. So who manages that? That is only open to the LME MCOs. For the first contract period. Now let's talk timing first off. When the standard plans get up and running, again, we don't know exactly when that is, but when the PHPs and PLEs are chosen and their contracts begin, there is a 1-year delay before the tailored plans will start. So then once the tailored plans start, they have a contract period of 4 years. In that contract period, only LME MCOs are able to apply for that contract. And the legislation is written that it is up to 7 tailored plans, no more than 7, but no less than 5. And realizing that if we drop to 5, there is going to be some consolidation. So the tailored plans, if we see a consolidation, which it does allow through the statute, the tailored plans will not look like the existing LME MCO catchment area. So when you think about the timeline again, if we are starting out RFPs on the standard plan in August, hoping to have them by the end of the year, beginning of next year, and then maybe having them up and running hopefully by fall or winter, or at least the end of 2019. Then there's another year, you're talking somewhere around 2020, the end of, before we'd see the tailored plans come up and running. One of the things that is different in the tailored plan from the existing LME MCO is that in addition to covering behavioral health in the tailored plans, they are also required to cover physical health. Now, the LME MCOs will stay the way they are, just doing behavioral health for now, but when the tailored plans come and run through, they will then have to do physical health. When they do the physical health, they're going to receive all the state and federal dollars, Medicaid dollars, for the physical health side, but they have to subcontract out to a PHP that has experience doing physical health to manage the physical health side of their population. So again, they have control of the money, but they are subcontracting that out. In order for them to become, LME MCO to become a tailored plan, one of the things that they have to do is they have to apply. There is also a requirement that they have to have a readiness assessment. If they don't pass the readiness assessment, they can't move forward in their application. So there is a process to determine who within the LME MCOs will be able to apply to be a tailored plan. Now, at the end of the 4-year first contract period, the tailored plans then open up beyond LME MCOs. The LME MCOs who are doing the tailored plan can apply for another contract period, but it also opens up to nonprofits. So nonprofit companies will be able to compete with the LME MCOs in order to have a tailored plan. Now, I've had a lot of questions about details on how this is going to roll out and work. Here's what I'll tell you. There's a bunch of questions that are literally in the legislation about how this is going to work. And there was a directive for the department to answer these questions in a report. But here's where the rub was. The bill didn't pass until June 15th, and the way the legislation was written is the department had to have a report back on the questions by June 22nd. Clearly, they did not have enough time. So we've also created a link for the report that the department put out. But what I will tell you, it's a lot of vagueness, and totally understandable why it is, because they just had a really short turnaround time. The other piece of that is a lot of these questions very likely are going to require changes, legislative changes, to be able to come up with a viable answer. 122C is likely going to change. But all that being said, you can't change legislation when the legislature isn't in. They're not coming back until January of 2019. So some of these things may continue to remain vague until they're able to come back to the legislature and get some clarity and some changes in order to move forward a resolution to the issue. I do want to mention that one of the questions I've gotten is around foster care. Foster care is not identified in this bill as in either tailored plan or standard plan. The way the legislation reads is it directs the department that they put them either in tailored plan or specialty plan, meaning they could have a statewide specialty PHP plan that would manage just the foster children. The reason this has been an issue is because children who are in foster care tend to be very transient, and there's been challenges in the past where if a foster child moved from one LME catchment area to another LME MCO catchment area, they were not able to continue to receive seamless services, and their behavioral health needs weren't being met. And so there was a real emphasis that they had to make sure that whatever plan was put in for those kids, that it was one that addressed the fact that they were so transient. And so it directs the department to come up with that. So all this being said, there's a bunch of things in here that are still really fuzzy. There's a whole series of questions. The legislature came to an agreement that they could not agree on a bunch of stuff, and they moved it over to the department and said, we need you to come up with recommendations to bring back to us. We're not going to just let you have carte blanche to fix it, but we want to give you authority to look this through, come up with recommendations and bring them back to us, and then we can decide how we want to move forward with the plan. I really encourage you to look through the attached paper. That's the overview. I've tried to simplify it as much as possible. This is pretty complicated stuff. There's a lot of specific things in there around, how does someone get from a standard plan into a tailored plan, and it's everything from that if somebody has 2 or more visits to the emergency room for psychiatric problems within the prior 18 months, and then there's directives that there has to be an assessment that's done by DHHS, and that has to be done within 14 days, and just a whole series of things. But again, it's not really clear yet, because the folks at the legislature couldn't come to agreement on everything. They got it as tight as they could, and then they really just asked the department to come up with those recommendations. The department has been very clear with us that they want to bring providers and LME MCOs and PHPs and consumers and advocates to the table to work on this together so that we can come up with recommendations that will be in the best interest of everyone. So I know this stuff is really complicated and a lot of it's confusing. If you want more details, please read the attached House Bill 403, 156. What I will say to you is when you read the bills, they can be pretty confusing the way that they're written, and references to subsections and subsections, and it can be a bit confusing to read. And again, you're going to find a lot of things that aren't concrete, and again, that was intentional. But if you are looking for more details, that's the place to get it. We are going to be having lots of conversation with the department, as well as publicly, as well as sort of behind the scenes, to figure out the details as we move forward. And we clearly want to have a voice in designing what this looks like moving forward. And we'll be asking our membership to sit on committees and participate in that work. So if you have questions, which I may have raised more questions than not by this presentation for you, please feel free to call me. I'm happy to talk with you. I will answer your question if I can, but it's also very possible we just won't have an answer for a lot of things yet because there aren't answers. But as always, feel free to give us a call. Thank you for being a member, and we greatly appreciate the opportunity to serve you.